Jet Greaves has been the MVP for the Monsters all season. He's continuing that in the playoffs. We're going to talk about their first game over the Syracuse Crunch, and we've got some mailbag questions to get to as well. So that's all coming up today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. We're also available on Sirius XM. Just look up Locked On Blue Jackets on the SXM app, and you can find us there as well. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Now, we're doing it's not a Monsters Monday, but I felt like we needed to talk about that performance by the Monsters in Game 1 of the North Division Final, because Jet Greaves just continues to be the absolute man. They are up 1-0 on the Crunch. After a 1-0 win. Jet Greaves, his first postseason shutout, he made 28 of 28 saves. Justin Pearson with the shorthanded game-winning goal that was the only goal that was scored. Like, if I'm the Crunch, I'm so mad about this game because so much happened and so little of it was of any consequence, you know? So I want to talk a little bit about the game. I want to talk a little bit about Jet Greaves, who has played 5 career playoff games and has a record of 4-1 with 1 shutout, a .952 save percentage, which is now the best in the AHL now that Eric Portillo has become human again. He has dropped all the way down to a .922, which is still extremely good, but it's been a rough couple of games for him over in the Pacific Division. Jet Greaves standing alone with AHL goalies, .952 save percentage, 1.47 goals against average. Of the teams that are still in it, he has played. He's allowed only 8 goals in 5 games, which is the same as Hunter Shepard, who of the other 8 goalies that are still in this matchup, he has allowed the fewest. So I'm going to go ahead and say that all of this is to say that Jet Greaves has been the Monsters MVP basically all season long. Like, he was 3rd in the league in wins in his 3rd season, tied for 2nd in the league in wins, with 30 wins in 46 games. He only lost 16 games all season, had a .910 save percentage in the regular season, has elevated himself in the playoffs. A lot of people were saying that, you know, he's too small for playoff hockey. He's too small to be an impact maker at this level. He is generously 6 foot tall. Having stood next to him, I don't think he quite hits 6 foot tall. But hey, if he wants to put that on his stat sheet, I'm not gonna argue with him about it. But he has just been truly excellent for the Monsters this season in the postseason. Like, even the one game that the Monsters lost, he still had a .923 save percentage, and he's been getting better as the games go on. So game 1, .923. Game 2, .923. Game 3, these are all against Belleville, .951. Game 4 against Belleville, which was the series winner, .970. Game 1 against the Syracuse Crunch, a 100 save percentage. He has been genuinely excellent, and like, the Monsters have had other players that are succeeding. It's very much still kind of a scoring by committee for them. They don't have a player in the top 20 in league scoring. Currently, their leading scorer is Justin Pearson, who is a rookie. He has 2 goals, 2 assists in 5 games, and then they've got a handful of guys that have 3 points. Like, it is very much like scoring by committee. 15 of the 23, so 20 2 because that includes Jet Greaves. Of the 22 players that they've used so far, 15 of them have a point. And of the guys that haven't, Blankenberg, Malatesta, O'Carb have only played 1 game each. Jake Christensen has played 2 games. So the only players that have played in all of the series so far that don't have points are Roman Ashan, Luca Del Belbaluz, and Alex Whalen. Which all three of those names surprise me. Actually, I would have thought that Ashan and Del Belbaluz especially would have racked up at least a couple of points by now. But like Trey Fix-Clancy has 2 assists in 5 games. He was excellent for the Monsters in the regular season. Hasn't figured it out in the postseason yet. He'll figure it out. David Jiricek, 3 points in 5 games. Again, a guy that I was expecting a little bit more from. The Monsters are really struggling offensively at the minute. They have scored, I want to say like 12 goals total. Yeah, they've scored 12 goals total. They've allowed 8. They're 4-1 in the postseason so far. I'm not like worried, but of the teams that are still alive in the playoffs, they have scored, I believe, the fewest of any of the teams that are left. So the Reign have scored 24, the Firebirds have scored 23, the Admirals have scored 20, the Hershey Bears have scored 18, the Wolfpack have scored 17, the Griffins have scored 16, the Crunch have scored 16, and then it's the Monsters in last place with only 12 goals scored. So like they are really struggling on the offense side of things, and Jet Greaves is bailing them out, but I don't know how long he can continue to do that. Like I'm looking at guys like Trey Fix-Clancy to step up. I'm looking at guys like Owen Sullinger to step up. Admittedly, he's tied for second on the team in scoring right now, but I want more than 3 points in 5 games. You know, he had a really good first series against Belleville. I want him to step it up. You know, like it feels wild to me that Justin Pearson is leading this team in scoring right now because in the regular season, he had 22 points in 66 games for the Monsters. And now he's got 4 points in 5 games in the playoffs. So like, what's happening here? Nothing satisfying is happening here, except for like Justin Pearson. It's great that he's leading the team in scoring, but like Sillinger, Jiricek, Pucha, Dunn, Trey Fix-Clancy, McCown. Like I want Del Belbaluz. Like I want these guys to be contributing more than they are right now because they can't out goalie their scoring woes. Or maybe they can. Who knows? Maybe Jet Greaves can just continue playing like he is, and they can win every game 1-0. That feels extremely unlikely. It could happen. But right now, Jet Greaves has been the undisputed MVP of this team for extremely good reasons. Now I'm asking the rest of the team to kind of step up, get involved. You're playing against a goalie for the Crunch who admittedly has played extremely well so far. In Brandon Halverson, who has a .920 save percentage and a 2.06 goals against average. He's 3-3 in the playoffs so far. But also he's got like 12 AHL games total. He's played, this is his first postseason. Okay, he's got 66 regular season games. He played 14 games for the Crunch this season, and previous to that hadn't played since the 2019-2020 season, where he played 2 games for the Tucson Roadrunners. Like that was his last AHL experience before this. You're playing against a guy that you can beat. Like you should be putting numbers up on this guy, and they're just not. And hopefully they figure it out. I have faith in them to figure it out, but we'll see. Game 2 is today, this afternoon, at I want to say 3 p.m. Eastern. So in like 8 hours as of the time of recording this, but I want more from this team, which sounds stupid when you look at like the record. Like they're 4-1 and they're up 1-0 in the series. Like they're in, and they've still got 2 home games to play. So they're in Cleveland tonight, or this afternoon, and then they go to Syracuse for 2 games, and then they come back for a game 5 if necessary, in Cleveland. So, it's everything is fine, everything is looking good. However, I want more from this team. This team can give us more. I feel very much like they haven't even reached their final form yet. So show me more. Show me what you can actually do, because I believe that this team has even more to give. Gonna take a quick break, and then I've got a couple of mailbag questions that I'm really interested to answer, actually. So we'll get into those in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Game Time, because it's the only... Okay, here's the thing. It's the only ticketing app that I use right now. I used to use other inferior ticketing services, and when I found Game Time, I was like, oh, this is just so much better. They've got killer last-minute deals. They've got all-in prices. They've got views from your seat. They've got a the lowest price guarantee. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. The NHL playoffs are happening at the minute. The NBA playoffs are happening at the minute. You can get tickets for both of those things at Game Time, and you can get better prices at Game Time than basically any other ticketing service. Like I said, they've got this lowest price guarantee. So if you find your tickets in your section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. They've got last minute deals, like even up to an hour before puck drop, you can still get up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, comedy, theater, concerts, all kinds of things. You can get views from your seat, which is great, because then you don't have to try and figure out, oh, I get there and there's a big concrete pillar in the way. And they've got the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We were talking about the Monsters, and now we're talking mailbag. I got a couple of good questions in on email and through DMs, so we're gonna get this one out of the way. Ken Holland apparently is in conversations for the Blue Jackets GM job. My question is mostly why. I don't think this makes sense for either side, if I'm being honest. I guess it really depends on whether the Oilers want to kick him to the curb or not. But Ken Holland has failed to win in Edmonton with 2 of the best players in the world. I don't think it makes sense for the Blue Jackets to be like, well, we've got an inferior roster than the Oilers, but hey, maybe Ken Holland can come in and be good for us. And I don't... If he couldn't win with McDavid, like, why should we be arguing? He did nothing at the trade deadline. Like, all of the players that he acquired at the trade deadline are not in the roster, are not in the lineup right now in the playoffs. They're down 3-2 against the Vancouver Canucks. There's just, I don't know, there's nothing there that, as a Blue Jackets fan, I'm like, man, I really wish Ken Holland would come and fix this team. He's 70 years old. The Blue Jackets allegedly want a disruptor, and I don't see how just rehashing the same old hires that haven't worked elsewhere is disrupting anything, But on the flip side, I don't see why Ken Holland would want to come here either. He's got the best players in the world. Why would he go to Columbus and be like, well, this roster is worse? Unless it's not even, like, I don't even think it's particularly enticing to give him the option to be GM and president of hockey operations, because I believe he already has that role in Edmonton. So it's not even like you can kind of entice him away with, like, quote unquote promotion. I am more... I think I prefer the concept of hiring Ken Holland to Marc Bergevin, but that's like saying, oh, well, the car was driving at 20 miles an hour when it hit me instead of 30 miles an hour when it hit me, It's very much, this is a slightly less fatal car crash if you hire Ken Holland than if you hire Marc Bergevin. But we'll see. Blue Jackets are still being very tight-lipped. Obviously, with the Avalanche out of the playoffs now, McFarland could be an option. Tulsky could be an option. I know the someone says that they might be looking at Don Waddle out of Carolina as well, which would be so funny if the Blue Jackets were like, we're hiring from Carolina and we're going to take Don Waddle instead of Eric Tulsky. But hey, Don Waddle would still be a better option than Ken Holland or Bergevin. Mark Hunter is another potential option, but he's not going anywhere with the Knights until they finish their Memorial Cup. So there's like at least another week there. We're not going to hear anything soon. It could be June by the time that anything starts actually happening, just because of all of the moving pieces. All of the people that they want to talk to are still kind of in various playoff situations or literally just finished their playoff situations. But in terms of Ken Holland, like, my knee-jerk reaction is no, and my slightly more measured reaction is also no. So that's kind of that. I have an unserious question, which I just wanted to kind of, I wanted to bring up, not to like answer the question seriously, but because I forgot this happened. If they hire Mark Bergevin, which I hope they don't, how long before he tries to sneak by the press by hiding behind a potted plant again? And I just wanted to kind of remind people that happened more than anything, because I think it was friggin' hilarious and possibly the best thing that Mark Bergevin has ever done. Which is, the bar is on the floor, but I just want to remind people that a grown man did not want to talk to the press, and so he picked up a potted plant and carried it across the room so people couldn't talk to him, which is like the kind of hater behavior that honestly I respect massively, but I still don't think the Blue Jackets should hire Mark Bergevin. Potted plant hysteria aside, a kind of a follow-up-ish question. In a fantasy world where instead of recycling kind of the same three guys, what kind of GM would I like to see? And this was a fun question because I was kind of looking at it and I was like, I'd love to see first off, I'd love to see more people that, again, are not just the same 25 men that just get recycled and rotated around when they get fired from one job for not being very good. It's very much of like, well, it didn't work for them, but it might work for us, like definition of madness type thing. If he was bad at one job, why do you think he would be better somewhere else? It's the only career where this happens is in sports. Like, if I got fired from my job for being bad at my job, like, I don't know that another company will be like, well, you are really bad with that company, but we're going to hire you anyway because we think that you might do it differently here. And it's a wild sentiment. It's a wild sentiment that you have to ask permission to like go somewhere else. I guess like if you're under contract or whatever, it makes sense. But I don't know. It's always been weird to me that, like, again, in any other job, if you had to get permission from your boss to like interview for other jobs, it would be wild. I understand why it works in sports, but wild. I would love to see more people that kind of have analytics backgrounds. Obviously, we talked about a lot about Tulsky and his kind of whole deal, but I would love to see like more analytics people get those kind of jobs. I think there's really such a reliance right now on they have to have played pro hockey to get the job. But arguably one of the better GMs for the last kind of decade or so is Julien Brisebois, who I don't believe ever even played professional hockey. Like, he was a lawyer before he worked for the Canadians, and then went to the Lightning. He never actually played. He never actually played hockey, like, professionally. Like I said, he was a lawyer and then went to. He was director of legal affairs for the Canadians, and then oversaw the Hamilton Bulldogs, their AHL affiliate at the time, won the Calder Cup there. He was never a hockey player, and arguably one of the best GMs of the past 10 years. So I don't think that you need to be a professional hockey player to understand the game in the way that means that you can succeed. So let's get more people that have never played, like, not necessarily lawyers, but and I wonder if it's people that played in college and got degrees in like business management or public relations or like maybe sports law, like financial experts. Like I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Like sports management is like a degree that people can go and get. I would love to see more scouts take the jump to get to the GM level, and I think that was Jarmo Kekalainen's biggest strength was how strong of a scout he was, and then he brought that into his GM role. And I do think that's still like the best thing about him was how good he was at drafting. So, fewer hockey people, more hockey minds, which is a weird distinction to make, but I also think that they should hire people that are, off the beaten track, whether they want to hire Europeans, whether they want to hire women, whether they want to hire people of color, whether they want to hire, I don't necessarily think that like women's sports is a step up to men's sports. Like I like that's not really how linear the progression should be, but they should be looking at the women's game because there are so many intelligent people working in that area that they could help at the NHL level. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Is less of the same 25 people rotated round and round and round, and more first time hires, more fresh eyes, more fresh concepts. And that's kind of how I feel about the GM kind of carousel as a whole. Gonna take another quick break, and then we've got a couple more mailbag questions that I want to get to really quickly, and kind of how the Blue Jackets should approach the offseason and how they probably will approach the offseason. So that's coming up in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, whether you need a supercharger, a roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, or literally anything you can think of. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you're always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or you're going to get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're going to burn rubber, not cash. All the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've got a couple more mailbag questions that I want to get to. This is kind of a two-in-one question, which is what would I like to see them focus on this offseason, bolstering what we have, retooling the team as a whole, and then following up, what sort of offseason do you think they're going to have? And like the answer to these questions is not necessarily the same thing. What would I like to see them focus on? I think bolstering the roster a little bit, but I also like... It's weird. There's a lot of people saying that they need to go out and get like a top line center or another defenseman or like a starting goalie. And like, yeah, but all of those things are easier said than done. I know that they have like a kind of a glut of prospects right now that they could ostensibly use to kind of get a couple of guys that are a little bit further along in the timeline. Or do you get guys that are kind of veterans that are going to be here for a couple of years to mentor the young guys and then kind of fade gracefully off into the distance? But the thing is that the Blue Jackets, they're not in like cap hell or anything, but they have $23 million or 23.4, nearly $23.5 million to spend on fitting Patrick Laine back under the cap. So that's $8.7 million there, which brings it down to what, like 17 million. Let me pull up my calculator real quick. But the point is they've got a ton of guys that they need to re-sign on top of that. And everyone's looking at this and going, oh wow, they've got $24 million to play with here. They've got $15.5 or $15.3, whatever it is, to re-sign Igor Chinikov, Kirill Marchenko, Alex Nylander, Cole Sillinger, Alexander Texier, Jake Bean, Kent Johnson. That's not a lot of money to re-sign 7 players. Like, that's an average of about $2 million a player. Some players will take less, like I imagine Nylander will probably take less. Texier will probably take less. But like, do you trade Jake Bean? Do you move on from Texier? Like, do you like what do you do with Igor Chidakov? What do you do with Cole Sillinger? Like Marchenko and Ken Johnson to me feel like the priorities to resign right now. But like there's just I don't know, the money isn't moneying, and then you get to the point of like, right, okay, well, do you move on from Provorov? Do you move on from Adam Boquist? Do you try to get out from under the Muslikin's contract and end up like giving up assets for someone who needs to hit the cap floor to take that contract, you know? There's just again a lot of moving parts. So while I would like to see them bolster the team a little bit, I don't see how they can do that. You know, I honestly would like probably go into next season with mostly the same roster that we had this season, which I know sounds insane, but I think a lot of the players took steps this season. We had injury issues. I think, you know, some players will be much better next season than they were this season. They got rid of, you know, a handful of guys that were kind of taking up roster spots for younger players. And, you know, this is not even getting into, like, does Denta Matejchuk make the team? Like, what's going on with, like I said, like what's going on with Ivan Provorov's contract? Do they try and shift him at the draft? Do they, again, like the Elvis contract is the one that really sticks out to me. The Line contract is a tough one. Like, I think if Line is on this team and being a difference maker, like 8.7 million, like that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I don't know. I just, the more I look at this team and the more I look at kind of the structure of the team and who they need to keep and who's got to go and like what's happening is like, I do wonder, is Patrick Line a Blue Jacket come October? And like, probably yes. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh man, maybe that's a contract that they move, you know? And I don't necessarily think that would be a good thing for the team, but I could very easily see it happen. So like that's what I'd like to see them focus on. What do I think they're going to focus on is tough because again, like I don't know who the GM is going to be. I don't know what the new GM is gonna value. Like I'd love to see guys like Marchenko get locked up semi long term. You know, I'd love to see like Ken Johnson will probably get a bridge deal. Cole Sillinger will probably get a bridge deal. Chinikov bridge deal. Nylander, I assume, will get like a 1 year prove it contract to like, hey, can you recreate what you did at the end of last season? You know, Marchenko is really the only guy there that I would want to lock up kind of long term. Like we're talking, you know, 4 years plus. So that to me feels like the priority for the newest, the new GM. But like, it's, I don't know. Do you try and move on from Sean Corrali? He's got 2.5 million on his contract and he's a UFA at the end of it. Justin Danforth, I wonder if he goes. Again, this is not me saying that these are moves I would make. These are moves that I could see happen, you know? I don't necessarily think that they should move on from either of those guys, but again, I could see a world where they do. It really depends on new GM coming in. He wants to put his mark on this team. Like, do they go wild and trade Boone Jenner? It's, I don't know. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen with this team in the summer. Because again, like we don't know what's going to happen at the draft. Like, do they draft a forward? Do they draft a defenseman? Is it someone that's going to be available for the team this upcoming summer, or is it, you know, a lot of people talking about Anton Salayev as who the Blue Jackets are going to draft? Which I've talked at length kind of about how I feel about that pick and how, you know, I don't love it. He's under contract until the end of the 2025-26 season. So like he's not going to be around for at least 2 more seasons. And like if they take Salayev, he's not going to be a factor for the next 2 years at least. I don't know that they draft anyone that's going to be an option for the Blue Jackets this upcoming October, really. Looking at like who's going to be available, looking at kind of there's no one here that like is going to be a Cole Sillinger where they don't give you the option to send them back to juniors, you know, apart from like, and you know, people are talking about will Celebrini even be in the NHL come October? Will he go back to Boston University for another season? Like I don't know what's happening with any of this. But it's going to be an eventful off season. That's my kind of my main takeaways. What kind of off season do you think do I think they're going to have? An eventful one. Will it be good? Who can say? It's either going to be great or it's going to be a disaster. I feel like there's really no in between for the Blue Jackets. It's either going to be unmitigated success or it's going to be set the whole thing on fire and start again. And like, I don't know which direction it's going to go in. But who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us. That's kind of all I've got for today. Monday, we will have another prospect profile. I sat down with Sebastian High of Locked On NHL Prospect and of Dobber Prospect, and we talked about Alphonse Frey, who is a underrated Swedish defenseman that Sebastian is very high on, and we had a really good conversation about him and what the Blue Jackets could do at 4th overall. So that's going to be Monday's episode. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on Sirius XM. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter and on Instagram. You can email us if you have comments, questions, criticisms. That's at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.